Hi guys, this is Oshi and this is going to be another 6 months in video where I talk about the deck that I had the chance to actually work with, to see how it performs for me, of course, during readings, which decks I enjoyed pairing it with, and yeah, just, I'm sharing my experience with actually working with the deck, not just, the first impression that I already did. I'm going to link that down below as well, so, and also the flip through. If you just, want to see quickly all cards, you can do that, or if you're curious about them, I went through the whole deck in the walkthrough. I'm not going to do that today. I have 5 points, well, 5 bigger points, but small checkpoints for each, for everything that I want to talk about. Everything is going to be timestamped, so if you're just, curious about one section, then you can move around in the video easily. Hopefully this is going to be helpful. I really enjoy these videos, watching and making as well. So if you have a channel and you post deep dives in decks and I don't know about it already, because I don't claim to, please feel free to mention it in the comments down below, because I'm always curious what people's actual experiences are with decks. So let's start with cardstock. So my initial feel of the deck was that, it's too thin and it might not hold up in a long while. But I kind of don't, it doesn't have a strong core. Other decks have it. It's more flexible, and I know that, if I would just bend it, it would stay like that, but obviously I won't do that. But it's easy to shuffle. It's not matte, it's shiny, but it's not, annoying. I don't mind shiny decks. Sometimes you have to find an angle to photograph them, that if, you're not posting anywhere and you're just using it, it's a completely fine cardstock. And so yeah, it's much better than I obviously at first I thought, and I'm just checking my notes. Okay, so the box is huge, and I don't have it with me, but this is the guidebook, so you can see the size, because the guidebook is bigger than this. No, the box is bigger than the guidebook. So I wish it would be smaller, because if this is the only deck you have, then it's not a problem to store it. But I have a few decks by now that have big boxes, and it's getting hard to store them, especially considering other decks when they manage to make the box the size of the deck, and change the guidebook into that size as well. But it's pretty and everything, I guess. So, but yeah, if you don't really have places to store big guidebooks and big boxes, then this might be a problem. Just, take it into consideration. It's a good quality, but it's huge. The card size is, and I'm using a metric because that's what I use. I don't know inches and stuff. It's 7 centimeters per 11.7 centimeters. So I think it's a bit smaller than the traditional size. I think that's like 12 centimeters or something. So it's a bit shorter. And the whole deck, when you hold it, like this, it's just 2.7 centimeters. So if you have small hands, you'll have easier control to holding the whole deck, because I have the light series, which I love, I adore, but it's kind of like, I think it's almost 4 centimeters wide, the whole deck. So I have a hard time holding the whole deck in my hand. With this one, it's not a problem. Even though this is a Mermaid tarot, I didn't get the feeling of the Little Mermaid out of it. I'm not a Little Mermaid or Mermaid fan, to be honest. Since my name is Ursula in English, I had a hard time with that Disney movie, to be honest, because I was always compared to the big fat old mean character in the movie, so obviously it wasn't my favorite, as a child. So I don't know if you're, a Little Mermaid fan, you'll find that in the deck or not. For me, it wasn't there, but I didn't mind that. But it has a Disney feel, so the way the illustration looks, I kind of felt like it was Disney, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. Yeah, and I really like this deck, so if you're curious about my opinion, I love it. Okay, so those were the card sizes, and then let's take a look at my favorite cards. It was hard. I had a hard time picking out favorites, to be honest, because I really like this deck, and it has quite a few excellent illustrations, and I would recommend this for newbies, because all the cards have the traditional meanings as well, but they add something that helps you hold on to the meaning easier. For example, with the Fool, let's check it. Yes, I'm in frame. Okay, so with the Fool, we have that the Fool has a little bag that they have everything in that they need to start a new life. But because we have a mermaid who comes out of the sea and steps into land and transforms into human, that signifies and makes it more obvious that you're starting something new and you don't know how you will, succeed in this new adventure. But you need to take that leap of faith. So I really like that. I really enjoy when it makes it easy, but not in a, hey, I'm going to spell it out for you way, because you have to think about what it means to a mermaid to leave their element and start something in a completely new space. So the Fool is one of my favorites. I like the backs, by the way. I really like them. Another one was the Strength, because it's not just talking about how you need to be, strong in some way, but how sometimes you need to be strong for other people or other creatures who are not in a position where they can stand up for themselves. And that's another layer which I really liked. I also really like Death, not because I enjoy what I'm seeing on the card, but it signifies that usually whatever it needs to, pass on in our lives, we're partially responsible for what it happened. So we're not out of picture, or we're not just a bystander in our lives. We end cycles. There are cycles that needs to end in our lives, but we are also responsible for how things turn out in that cycle. And sometimes it's not an easy thing to, admit that you were partially responsible for whatever happened, even if you were not the one, spilling the oil on the ocean, obviously. But the way humanity as humankind, we live our lives, have an impact on other people and other creatures and everything like that. So I hope that makes sense, but I appreciate that extra deeper meaning and layer on the cards, and I have this with pretty much all of them. The Seven of Swords, this was one of the cards that made me actually want to buy the deck, because I really like this. Oh, should we pick up? Oh, me, I mean, they know that they shouldn't pick up something like swords from, a floating iceberg, because, or, it's not floating, whatever, because it's not for them. They don't need swords in their elements in the water, but they're curious, and they want to have something that they know they shouldn't have. And Oftentimes that's true for the Seven of Swords. I have the Eight of Pentacles and I don't have the 3. Yes, I do. Okay. Because I was like, but I wanted to pick that. Because, okay, let's put the rest down. I really like the Three of Pentacles because it highlights how we can use in a teamwork our different abilities, you know, and our differences, our uniqueness in order to create something together. I really like that. And I like that it's in the Eight of Pentacles as well, that when you work on something and, you know, you're on a higher level of creating, you're never really alone. I mean, okay, there are people who are desperately working away and no one is helping them, but oftentimes I would like to believe that we have other people and other creatures, spirit guides, whatever, who are going to step in and help us in that final stage of the work as well. So I really appreciated that for me the Three of Pentacles was represented in the Eight of Pentacles as well. Ten of Swords, I need the Ten of Swords to be something where it ends the cycle. For me, this is the rock bottom. This is where a cycle ends, but it wasn't because you wanted it. It's because you couldn't stop the cycle ending in a, you know, in a bottom, because you were just sliding down and not finding your footing. You were making wrong decisions and it led you here. But it also has the suggestion that every cycle, when it ends, it will start something new. It's not a happy ghost, so it's not about, you know, leaving behind your previous life and just be like, la 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 la, I don't care, everything is fine. No, you can see that the ghost is sad because they lost this life. So for me, that was a good one, but I know that some people don't like blood and, you know, just death in the Ten of Swords, but I read it like that, so I appreciate when it's present. The Queen of Wands, I love that she's, you know, she has flowing liquid lava in her hands, because that suggests that she mastered raw energy, raw passionate energy. She mastered it, you know, it's flowing through her hands because she decided that. And she just looks fierce, and I love how fire was depicted in the cards. I talked about the a long while in the initial walkthrough. And the Seven of Wands, because it's just, I think it's quite a funny one with the oops, I walked into something that I shouldn't have, a way of reading the card, which I think it's funny. And even though, you know, they are ready to defend their own place, I kind of like this, like, oh, I don't mean harm, please don't, you know, kick me aspect of the card. So for me that was fun too. Okay, so these were my favorite cards. I don't think I really had any cards that I didn't like. There were quite a few that had a new meaning on the original ones, so I appreciated that. Guidebook, it's heavy, it's huge, it's beautifully illustrated. As you can see, there's always a full-size picture for every card, but I wish it would be smaller. Even though it is pretty, but it's quite heavy, which means that my shelf is full of decks that are quite heavy. And I appreciate that they want to, you know, make it a pretty presentation for the deck, but I think it's overkill. I don't think they need it. I would appreciate, or I would appreciate an option to choose a deck with a compact box style when you have it without so much pictures and, you know, more of a text, because I have the cards, I don't read the guidebook away from the cards, so for me it's not necessary to be able to carry around something like this. The guidebook was really great. I didn't agree with everything, how she reads or interprets cards. Obviously we are all different, and the author has her own connection to mermaids, which was very interesting to read about. I really liked the foreword and introduction of the book. There was a lot of new ideas which I appreciated, like I said, on the cards, and they are explained in the book as well. So there were some interpretation which were not necessarily new, but she worded them in a way that made me understand or see them in a different light. Sometimes you have to be told something 100 times and you're going to get it for the 101. Sometimes that happened, and I had that with this book. I think the guidebook is excellent, and if I were to suggest a book for a newbie, like I said before, I would suggest this. The Mermaid Terrorist, I think it's perfect for beginners, especially because it has a lovely modern feel to the cards. Okay, the court cards, I'm not going to hold it if you don't mind, because they are just heavy. I will put back the High Priestess here. Look at that. So you don't have to look at nothing while I talk. With the court cards, there were repeating information, and I mean by that for the knights and all the knights were pretty much the same, so there wasn't enough uniqueness to them, not as much as I would like to have them, because for me they feel quite unique on top of their commonality. But in a same way, because the information was repetitive, it helps you to learn the basics, and after a while, once you start working with it, you will pick up the differences anyway. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just something that, if you expect a really diverse court card meanings out of this book, it's not necessarily there. Okay, spreads. There wasn't a lot of spreads in the book. There was 2. There was a basic 3 cards meaning, and then another one with the 4 elements. Then you have to separate the deck into piles according to majors and minors, and you pull one from each, and the major represents the question, which it's not necessarily that original, because I ran into this spread in other places and other guidebooks as well, but it's not a bad one. But besides the spreads, there are spells. So if you want to work with spells because you want to do some magic, then you can do that, because this deck uses quite a few magical elements in a way that it's practical. So if you're interested in diving into witchcraft, then I think it's also, it's good for you to see if you're even want to do that, or you can actually try out a few spells to see if you're interested in going down that road. But if you're not, it's not necessary or required for you to know all these to work with the deck, which I appreciate. Okay, I think that's all about the guidebook. Yes. Oh, and something else. You don't need to read the guidebook constantly when you work with it. I went through the guidebook once. I made notes, which helps, and I have those notes for later, but I find that I remember what the extra information was about cards when I look at them. The artwork invokes that information. It's depicted very well. So for me, something like this with the 9 of Swords, it comes back that she's talking about, but what if you're a siren here who has someone who invaded her space? You have to see this situation from both sides. So it sticks, which probably means that the guidebook was well written and the artwork was made in a way that there was connection between the two people, which sometimes it's not there, so I appreciate it. Okay, we have the guidebook done. Then my favorite part, pairing the decks with other no, pairing the decks with other decks. Why was that so hard? Let's see. So I didn't really look into all of my oracle decks because this deck is part of my summer deck. So mainly I paired with my summer oracle selection, but one of my absolute favorite was, let's just pick one, is the Sacred Creators Oracle. For some reason, even though this is a very busy art style and not necessarily I mean, you could say that it's watercolor, but I don't really feel like it. I think it's digital, but that's just my impression. But maybe because of that, you know, we have one very clear and spacious card, Creator Water with the Tower. But because they both have colors, sometimes I was able to use the connection between two cards. For example, we have a lot of greens with some gold here, and that makes me look at the Five of Cups and look at all the golden and the light. You know, it highlights it, it brings it out. So shift away to new potential. Why was that so hard? And the Five of Cups. So I wouldn't, if these two came up in a reading, I wouldn't think about necessarily just the loss and being immersed in loss, but the importance to find that light in the light tower. You know, find that glimmer of hope that will help you get away from those heavy feelings. And I think that's you know, it's rare. That's why, you know, I use oracles to add an extra layer, to add something, or to help me focus on something in the tarot card more, because, you know, there's a lot of information in one tarot card. And you can, you don't have to pair decks, but sometimes it's helpful. Six of Swords with Prosperity, Sisters are happiness and joy. And yeah, you have to leave behind things for, you know, in order to experience something like that. So yeah, for me, these two work very well. This was one of my favorite combination. And even though this is for creative people and stuff like that, I think it can be used even if you're not using it for that. If this makes any sense. Another pairing that I really enjoyed, and I was surprised that I enjoyed, was the Illustrated Crystallary. There was one that I pulled yesterday and I wanted to show, because that was completely by accident, and of course it's not showing up today. Aww. Okay, whatever. That was a very nice pairing with the Justice card. But yeah, you can, you know, anchor in Justice, find your true core. And even though both are busy artworks, they have that same, I don't know, same style, sort of busyness. And I wasn't bothered by it, but I know that some people can be bothered by busy cards. So if that's a thing for you, then it's just, you know, it's not for you. Better with time, King of Swords. You learn what you need to do and not to say. With time also, your plans and strategy will be better once you have more time to work on them. Sacred Center, finding that with the Three of Wands. And this Three of Wands is a bit different, the interpretation, you know, actually focusing on something. So with Sacred Center, you can talk about how it's important for you to find what you need to focus on and don't lose sight of, but don't lose sight of other side or other options as well. And I like how the colors are kind of similar. What do you need with the Empress? yeah, so yeah, I really enjoyed it. I didn't pull this out together often, but when I did it, really, I mean, it worked well, really nicely. Another pair that I usually use, and I mean, if you watch my channel for a while, you know that I use this oracle for pretty much everything, every deck, is the Wisdom of the Oracle. This is the trimmed and edged version. It's a collage deck, it's different art style, but this deck has so good keywords that you pretty much can't just, you know, you cannot not get a good reading out of pairing it with any deck. Hierophant, fork in the road, making that choice, but remembering where you came from, what you learned from other people. Observer and the Six of Cups, observer in the reverse, meaning you need to get closer. I think that was the meaning with the Six of Cups, you know, not getting lost in the moment, in memories, because you're not, you know, you would need to take a look at the situation from a few steps back, but you're not unable to do it because you're too lost in the memory. The Page of Cups with the Yin in the reverse, which is the more feminine side of energies, more gentle, subtle. And with the Page of Cups we have that emotional connection that you need to get in touch with your heart and your creative side and all that. And you know, here we have a cup that water is flowing out. We have one where the water is still in, but there's movement in both directions. So you know, you can get a lot out of these two. So yeah, that was one that, you know, when I wasn't sure which one I wanted to pull with, and it wasn't the Secret Creators, but because that was pretty much the one that I used the most, I pulled out the Wisdom of the Oracle. And the last one was pretty much surprising because I wasn't using it with this deck. I bought the what is it? Because there's two Mermaid oracles. This is the Oracle of Mermaids, and I specifically bought this one to work with, you know, to use it with the Mermaid Tarot, and I never reached for it because for some reason it has so different artwork. Even though, you know, they could interact nicely, I never found myself pulling out this deck. I always reached for something else. I'm not saying that, you know, that they can't work together, because every oracle with keywords can be used with a tarot card, you know. I mean, it's just really just personal taste, how you like what you see in the cards. But I kind of, even though, you know, as you can see, they work well. I mean, we have sanctuary, privacy, inviolate personal space, respected boundaries and taboos with the Emperor. So these could talk about toxic masculinity, for example, not respecting your boundaries and or other people's boundaries. But I never found myself using it. And I think it's not necessarily the art style as a whole, but because it has different art style for the mermaids. So if it wouldn't be a mermaid deck, I mean, if it would be dolphins or, I don't know, turtles or whatever, anything other than mermaids, I might have used it before. But I kind of felt like that these two have separate universes, and they were not clashing in a good way for me. But like I said, it's completely personal. So maybe what you see here on the table right now is something that you want to have at home. So yeah, I mean, just one thing, you know, my experience as always. Okay, so those were the deck pairings. Let's talk about the uniqueness. So how unique this deck is to my collection? Well, it's pretty unique. I don't have any other mermaid decks. I don't even think I will get another mermaid deck, to be honest. I was thinking about getting the Dame Darcy because I really like the art style, but it's just too expensive, at least right now. So maybe at some point, and then, you know, I will have two mermaid decks. But even if I would get that, I wouldn't get rid of this one, because let's have a better one. I don't want the Five of Swords because this is such a well-made deck that I don't see myself getting rid of it for any other decks, to be honest, because I might not, you know, move it out from the summer decks section, so I might probably keep it for that season, but it doesn't mean that it will go anywhere, because it is unique and it is so well made that right now I'm not able to, and I don't want to replace it. The last one is, did my initial reaction impression hold up? And absolutely. My initial walkthrough is 50 minutes long because I was just so lost in the artwork and the card, and I had high hopes, and it delivered. So there is going to be a new deck coming out from the same, not the artist, but whoever. I should have said the name. Lisa Robertson. Same person. That was what I was looking for. Words I have problems with today. And it's going to be circus themed in the fall, and I cannot wait for that deck because I looked up the artist and he makes really cool art on Instagram. And if she's the one who's writing the guidebook and instructed the guy to create art, then I'm expecting another really cool deck out of that collaboration as well. So yes, definitely keeping it, and it's exceeded my expectations. So if you were hesitant to pick up this deck, I would suggest that do it even if you have mermaid decks in your collection, because this is so much more than just a deck with mermaid theme to it. It's so well made that it can be a staple for anyone who would connect with the artwork, because you need to do that, obviously. But yeah, that was my rambly and for some reason very hard to articulate a long-term review of the deck, but still hope it was useful. And please do let me know what's your experience with the deck and all that jazz. Find all the information in the comments, in the description down below. Subscribe, hit the like button, that helps my channel. Ring that bell if you're interested in videos from me or even live readings, because I do lives unexpectedly as well. Yeah, that's all. Have a lovely day and see you in the next one. Bye.